pseudo first order reactions. Now, what is the meaning of a pseudo? Pseudo means that looks real, but actually it is not. So in many chemical reactions, it may appear that there are two reactants are involved. So definitely that reactant is having a role. But in actual chemical reaction, the one of the component doesn't affect the rate of reaction. Like if in a chemical reaction between the two substances, one reactant is present in such a large quantity than another, that reaction is purely depending on presence of one reactant only. If you think it just like that, I mean it's an analogy, although when we are running a car, we are buying a petrol from the market. We're filling up a car and we are counting mileage only on basis of petrol consumed. But actually, the main percentage is like when your fuel is injected in your engine, 98% is air only. Very few percentage is fuel. But because air is present naturally in such a large amount, then we are not paying for it. We not consider that. We discount that part. And we focus only on the one thing that is present in limited quantity, like fuel. That's the same analogy applies to the pseudo first order reaction. We lay our stress only on the one part that is present in a small quantity, not the second part which is present in ample amount. Like here you see it's a ester, ethyl acetate. Initial concentration was 0.01 mole and water is somewhere 10 moles. It happens under acidified conditions. When action is complete, we are getting a 0.01 mole of acetic acid and ethanol. This is 0, and it's present in a huge amount. For the same reason, that's why we are not considering it. Let's say if we present a reaction rate, it will be like that, concentration of this one and concentration of water. But we'll discount because water is present in a constant quantity, we assume it. In the actual reaction, it's consumed, barely consumed. There is no consumption of H2O at all. So we consider it as a constant, mix it with this K and getting a new reaction rate constant. That's the K. It's a K dash. So this is a constant and reaction depends only on ester concentration when it's a first order reaction. This is an example of pseudo first order reaction. So pseudo first order reactions are those which depend only on one quantity, although they are present in more than one quantities in reaction. We have discussed so far the different expressions for chemical reactions. Now we are going to talk about factors that affect the rate of a chemical reaction. These are order of reaction, what are the rate determining step, what is the temperature, what is the pressure in case of gases, presence of catalyst in a chemical reaction. All these factors affect rate of a chemical reaction. Let's try to explore a few of them one by one. So first is order of a reaction. We know what is order of a reaction. It is a summation of the powers of concentration of reactants in reaction rate expression. For a reaction to happen, there must be interaction or collision between molecules. Like only then reaction can proceed. Like here we are having a decomposition of ammonium nitrate that decomposes to give us nitrogen and water. That's a unimolecular reaction, meaning a single molecule decomposes. Bimolecular reactions are those in which two molecules interact to give us a reaction. For that, we are having a term called molecularity of a reaction. Molecularity of a reaction means the number of reacting species, it may be atoms, ions or molecules, taking part in an elementary reaction which must collide simultaneously in order to bring about a chemical reaction. So the chemical species in a chemical reaction that are colliding simultaneously to give us a chemical reaction known as the molecularity of a reaction. Here two HI molecules collide simultaneously to give us two molecules, that is iodine and hydrogen. Here is a trimolecular reaction. We saw unimolecular, then bimolecular, now trimolecular. In this reaction, two nitric oxide and one oxygen molecule simultaneously collide to give us nitrogen dioxide, two molecules. So it's a trimolecular reaction. Now, probability of more than 3 molecules will interact simultaneously is very small. So, when we see a complex reactions with a multi-atoms exchanges or a charge exchange is taking place, it's not taking place in a single collision. Like we saw sometimes a reaction with 3 or 4 molecules giving us a 1 or 2 or more than 2 products. Those reactions, because we know simultaneously more than 3 molecules colliding is very difficult or very remote chance of happening so. So such reactions will happening in multiple steps. So steps of reactions for such complex reactions. Multi-atoms reactions takes place in stages. Each such stage is called step of reaction. Each intermediary product formed is called intermediate species. For the reaction like nitrogen dioxide reacting with carbon monoxide, we are getting nitric oxide and carbon dioxide. It's a simple reaction, two chemical species on each side, and looks in first stage like that there is a transfer of oxygen from nitrogen dioxide to carbon monoxide to make a carbon dioxide. But experimentally when we determined it, the rate expression depends only upon second power of nitric oxide, nitrogen dioxide, not carbon monoxide at all. So it's a bit, mind-boggling. Why the reaction doesn't depend upon carbon monoxide? Well, there's also a part of it that is a serious. So what could be possibly be reason? Carbon monoxide concentration doesn't affect the result of the reaction. Let's try to understand it. This reaction happens not in one step but in 3 steps. In the very first step, nitrogen dioxide equilibrates with nitrogen tetroxide. This trinitrogen tetroxide is the species towards equilibrium. Most of the equilibrium we like is equilibrated with this compound. Then in the next step, nitrogen tetroxide decomposes to give us nitric oxide that we create and nitrogen trioxide. This nitrogen trioxide transfers oxygen to carbon monoxide to give us nitrogen dioxide. So basically what looks a simple reaction is a three-step reaction. And each step doesn't happen at the same rate. Different steps having different propensities. Reaction is constant, that will affect the total reaction time. Let me give you a simple analogy here. In manufacturing of a motorcycle, let's say any company manufactures a motorcycle, it receives parts from different vendors or different suppliers. Now, if one particular component comes from abroad and it comes in a limited supply, rest of the components can be manufactured locally. For manufacturing 100 bikes, we are getting a 120, 130 components locally, but foreign suppliers can give you only 50 components, that particular component that you need to make a bike. So how many bikes you can make? I hope you understood. 50 only, because one component is that are essential for the bike. We are getting from foreign, that is in limited supply, and that decides the rate of manufacturing. Similarly, in chemical reaction, the species that the reaction that happens in a slowest possible phase, like this is very fast, this is fast, this is slow, and this is nitrogen tetroxide. This reaction is fairly slow. This governs the rate of reaction. Doesn't matter how fast this can happen. As soon as nitric oxide is formed, it converts nitrogen tetroxide. This nitrogen trioxide immediately converts monoxide into dioxide. But it happens only when this decomposes. So this is a rate determining step. Or in other terms, we can say in any chemical reaction, slowest step is a rate determining step of a chemical reaction. And the species involved in rate determining step only important for deciding the rate of a chemical reaction. That's why, since carbon monoxide is not present in the rate determining chemical reaction or rate determining step, it doesn't affect the rate of a chemical reaction. It depends only upon nitrogen dioxide. As you see here, that depends upon the second power. So that same thing we see here. So to understand the mechanism of a chemical reaction properly, or the rate of a chemical reaction properly, we should understand the steps of chemical reaction, and we should also know at what speed a particular step happens. It's fast, slow, medium. We should know it to understand the chemical reaction properly.